It has absolutely impacted the copywriting industry, and I feel so grateful that I got into copywriting before it was ever a thing, because I do think genuinely AI can produce copy that is better than someone who just started out as a copywriter. And so why would anyone hire them? It doesn't make sense, because it's free and it's easy and you can get it in a minute, not a day. So I think we're going to see long term the effects of that, because if you don't have those copywriters starting out and learning and making mistakes, then who's going to be the next midway copywriters? And like it is going to affect the industry long term. Or AI will just get better and better and it will take everybody's jobs in the end. But there was a lot of fear mongering around that originally.
Welcome back to Founders in the Field, the show where we go behind the scenes of agency leaders, consultants, and creative founders to show you how they're building, scaling, and staying sane in the trenches. I'm your host, Stephen Bradley, and today's guest is Alice Cook, founder of On Top of the Word. How you doing, Alice? So let's dive straight in. For people who don't know your story, take us right back to the start of your journey and tell us why you started your own business and give us an overview of what your role looks like today.
Absolutely. So I did English at university just because it was my favourite subject, which I don't think is very good forward thinking, but I was like, if I'm going to spend my time doing it, I want to enjoy it, and I didn't have anything more intelligent to base it on than that. Reading, I love writing, I always have done. I mean, geeky but true. The thing I was most told off for as a child was that I wouldn't go to bed on time because I would be reading under my duvet cover. I was that child. I know. So yeah, I've always loved reading and writing, devour books. This is a whole wall of books. We can only see a small snippet, but my 8-year-old told me the other day that there are 367 books in my house, which I had not taken the time to count, but that's the joy of half term. So I started the business quite unexpectedly, and it was never the plan. So I did my English literature degree, and the one thing I knew I didn't want to do was be a journalist, because in my mind they're sleazy and they make people say things they don't want to say, and they're just generally, they make people uncomfortable. So my first job was as a journalist, but at Country Life magazine. So I was talking about dogs and horses and gardens and houses and nothing that was going to make anyone uncomfortable. And from there I went into other B2C, business to consumer titles in various writing roles, and then went into B2B, business to business, which was initially about food, but as I learned quite quickly, anything in B2B isn't about the product, it's about how you get there, it's about the technology and the thinking behind it. Although I did get sent a lot of free food, that can't be denied, and it was great. But yeah, it became, whilst working in B2B publishing, my unintentional niche, because I am not techie. I can barely work my television remote. My other half will tell you I struggle with the Ring doorbell. It's really quite embarrassing. But I write about tech all the time. I think about 90% of the clients are in tech, because my strength is my ignorance. So I turn what engineers and really techie people love about their product and turn it into words that people can actually understand, who don't understand tech like you and I. Don't assume, maybe you do understand tech. I don't understand. So to go, sorry, I've gone slightly off the rails of your original question. So I went into journalism and honed my niche, which became turning really techie, convoluted, acronym-laden text into stuff that people can not only understand, but they actually want to read, and it does the job. Like, it makes a sale, it gets people where they need to be in consumer terms. And so I was doing freelance work around the side of working on magazines, and that became more and more to the point where I was earning as much in the evenings as I was in the daytime, except in the evenings I was working for me, sometimes in my pajamas, sometimes with a glass of wine in my hand, and it was much more civilized. And as though I had a crystal ball, cleverly, but not cleverly because it was entirely coincidence, I started my business just before COVID, so end of 2019. And in COVID, copywriters were like gold dust, because nobody could see each other and everybody wanted to get their message across and show their customers that they were still there for them and that they were still operational or not, or the versions of that were going on. So it was a great time to be a copywriter. luckily, having done an English literature degree, I knew lots of people who could write because I got so much work that I didn't know what to do with it. What a happy problem to have. But I knew people who could help me. So the business was originally called A Girl of My Word, which I thought was really clever. But then I wasn't just a girl, there was 7 of me, because that's how many people we needed to get all the content across the line for all of our clients. So I had to slightly switch it up when I realised that this was going to be a long-term thing. It wasn't just a COVID thing. People do need writers, and I changed it a year or so later from A Girl of My Word to On Top of the Word, another play on words. I delight in these things. And yeah, that is what it's been ever since. It has had many clients, all I would say 80 to 90% in tech. Its biggest clients are Google, but it has had Nord Cloud, which is an IBM subsidiary, and lots of cybersecurity, lots of, try not to fall asleep, but this is the bread and butter. Cybersecurity, data, cloud transformation, data storage, all those sorts of things that are so useful to businesses across industries, but that not everyone necessarily understands if, like me, you're not a techie person. And that is where the business makes its money.
It never ceases to amaze me, during COVID or just before COVID, that even though it was a tragic time, that birthed so many different businesses and industries and sub-industries and different ways that people could make money. And obviously copywriting was around before then, but that kind of the constraints of COVID then made it so it's like you said, as you described, like gold dust. And being in the industries that you're in, even though you make jokes saying it's quite boring, but in the sense of they're techie companies, they're real, the high tech, the cybersecurities, all these different types of things. Not everyday people might not understand, do you know what I mean? And that's where obviously you come in to be able to actually sort of articulate what they're trying to say to the normal person. And I can see there's huge value in that because they're massive. It's a massive industry, and in 2026, tech is ever evolving. Do you know what I mean? There's new tech, especially with AI and all these different things. So tech is kind of dominating, but if it's not articulated well, like you said, if it's articulated with acronyms and the way they speak to each other, it isolates to only a certain person that's going to actually be able to understand it, take it in, and actually want to read it. So I completely can see the value in, having someone that can write beautiful English and to take that sort of tech-heavy language and be able to transform it into something that, almost like a book, do you know what I mean? That you actually think, oh, I really want to read that.
Yeah, except it's sort of the opposite of that. You've almost hit the nail on the head, because tech people are so passionate about what they do, but they speak a language that hardly anyone can understand. But they have got amazing products. But it's not turning it into a book. It's turning it into as few words as possible is often the task, because we have such a short attention span because we're always on the computer and always on apps and always on our phones. So you need to get the message across, even though the concept is something ridiculously tricky. And often what I say to them is, forget what it does, forget how it does it, because they love to tell you, and in the back end this is how you get there and this is the coding, and you're like, great, nobody cares about this. But what they care about is what it can do for them, the problem it can solve. So to the normal person, sorry tech people, you are normal, but to the normal person, what's the problem it can solve and how can you get there? And you've got to get that message across in so few words so people are like, okay, I want that. Like, that's the job.
Yeah. What I meant by book, I didn't mean, sorry, the length of it. I meant in like the enjoyable of it reading, do you know what I mean? To be able to take it from something that's very tech heavy and be able to take it into a beautiful set of words that you're actually going to be able to understand it. But yeah, I completely get it. And I think, you can definitely see the value in what you do.
Well, I'm glad. There definitely seems to be value in it, and I'm definitely pleased that even the biggest tech companies, despite, as I think we're probably going to go on to, the rise of AI, telling that tech companies are hiring writers.
Mm-hmm. No. So now we've got a bit of background about you and the business. Let's dive into sort of operationally. Walk me through how you're currently delivering for clients day to day.
So most of my clients are on, in fact, at the moment, all of them are on monthly retainers. So they either have a certain amount of hours from the business a month, or a certain number of pieces or documents of an agreed length, so they know that they have time aside, and they can use it as they want. So that could be X amount of blogs or web pages, or for some of the software developers, that's another one that we work for, and app companies, it's quite often, which takes the most time, slogans and little pithy lines and headlines for their app pages that are going to be impactful. Writing a page of text, no problem for me, can do that quite quickly. Writing 3 words that really gets the message of something quite complicated across, hours. takes the time. So day to day, they all know how many hours or days they have in a month, and they will either set what they want from that month at the beginning of the month, and it gets just returned to them at the end, so I might not speak to any of them day to day. Some of them are more hands-on, some of them are very, very prescriptive, and they know exactly what they want, and they'll give you all the keywords and how they want something structured. Some of them give you completely free rein, and that's how they like to work. It doesn't matter to us which way they like to do it, but yeah, there's a certain amount of work set aside at the beginning of the month, and by the end of the month, apart from the ad hoc things that definitely do come up day to day, it all goes back to the clients. It gets written, and then it will get read by somebody else, and then which is proofing, editing, and it will get read by 3 different people before it ever goes back to the client, because you can be a fantastic writer, but what you think you wrote on the page and what you actually wrote on the page are often really different, no matter how many times you read it yourself. So it's good to have other pairs of eyes on it, and then yes, it gets delivered back to them either in exciting Google Drives and Dropboxes or via email, depending on how they like to work. And yeah, it's just making sure everyone's happy all of the time, and a lot of it is quite admin heavy for me personally, and just making sure that I am responsive and contactable, and everyone knows what's happening and when, and we're always online to answer it. Well, always in working hours online to answer any queries.
So, with your team and then your clients, do you set a certain team member to that client that writes for that client, or is it like when it comes in? Can you just unpack that a little bit?
Yes, there's usually 1 team member per client, but there's also somebody else who could and does do it in case of illness or just anything popping up, or if in fact something comes up, which has definitely happened before, and they have an urgent project over a matter of weeks or months, and it's way more than 1 person can do, and I can do all of them. There could be 3 people on any of them at any one time.
Okay, and you mentioned then about it's quite admin heavy, so it kind of leads me on to my next question, where, if anywhere, have you sort of implemented any like automation or AI, not necessarily in the actual writing of your content, but actually in the helping like with operationally sort of the mundane tasks of maybe admin or anything like that?
Yeah, we definitely use AI loads, and some of the clients who have smaller budgets but just need the content to be read by someone and make sure it makes sense, they do get AI written copy. They know what they're getting, they know it's not going to be perfect, and it is going to sound like everybody else's, but in some instances that doesn't matter. It's not always that AI is the devil, it's not. And some of them, which they find really useful, they use AI to articulate what they want to say in a blog or a report or a white paper. So AI structures it for them. We don't use any of those words, but it will say this idea is going to be here, we're going to elaborate on it here, and they can just speak to ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever they want, and Gemini will pump out something which we won't use, but it helps us know what they want, and it helps them articulate what they're trying to say, because the whole point of them hiring a writer is that they don't know how to say it. AI gives them that starting block, and then we can turn it into something. It often involves a few conversations because AI is AI, but yeah, it's definitely helpful. Day-to-day operations, I think they're actually all on different ones. they are all on either a Slack, a Roam, Google Messages, like that each. Actually, I do think at the moment every client is on a different one, but they're all on a messenger, and all of their meetings that they have on whichever messenger they are using are annotated, and you can have the video afterwards, and you can have the transcript, and all of that is AI, and all of that is incredibly useful and saves a lot of time, especially if the writer in question can't be in that meeting and they need to know exactly what happened. It saves you scribbling notes at the time, so you can actually concentrate and make sure that everybody knows what's gone on. And even meetings that you're in yourself, you can look back at and know what happened, when, and who said what. Useful also for accountability occasionally, because what people say they want from a piece of writing and what they actually want aren't always the same thing. So you can have a meeting, they'll decide what they want, and then you produce that, and then they'll go, no, that's not what I want at all. And you have the ability to say, well, this is what you said. Exactly what I produced. And they go, oh yeah. Which is helpful sometimes. So yeah, it's definitely useful. And I do also have, I think everybody does have in the company, Grammarly, which it does pick up on things. Even though we are all writers, it definitely picks up on things wrongly quite a lot of the time, and encourages us all to speak American when we don't, even though it's set on UK settings. Some of the clients are American, so that's fine. But yeah, it is there, and we do all have that in place. So yeah, and that's another AI tool we definitely use.
Literally, as soon as you said Grammarly, I was about to say, but you said it anyway. It does try and get everybody to speak American, doesn't it? It's always coming up with, spelling mistakes, and it's like, no, that's not how we spell it over here.
Yeah, and you have it on UK settings. You're like, if you listen, UK.
So from what you said to me then, obviously, the meeting, the Fathom Fireflies, the meeting sort of AI that is extremely useful, like you said, for multiple different reasons. And also you say that clients sometimes will use AI to be able to tell you, like, this is kind of what we want, not word for word, but sort of like, this is what we're trying to say. And then you have also some clients that actually want sort of cheaper content, and you use AI to be able to give that to them. Do you have like a process set up, with AI that can actually pump them out to them, or are you sort of like using AI like Claude or anything like that from scratch every time, or does it have sort of like context of what you've done before? Because obviously you've wrote loads and loads of good copy. Have you plugged that into the AI to say like, this is what I've done in the past, sort of thing?
We haven't put our own content in there, but it's on the internet, so it has it anyway. It doesn't matter if you do or don't. But definitely, like on Google, there's a thing called Gem, and you can set up a gem for them that speaks in their tone of voice, and it's really not bad. I mean, it definitely is still AI, and we cannot escape that, and it talks like AI. But I know of one person who uses it for her LinkedIn posts, and she is viral on LinkedIn. Like, all of her posts get such a great engagement rate, huge response, and they do sound like her. They do sound like how she speaks. It's because she has a gem that she has honed and honed and honed, and so she just tells us what she wants to say, and then AI pumps out what it is. If you were to put it through a tracker or to try and run SEO on it, it would fail, but that's not what that's for, so it doesn't matter. It works, and it's great.
And obviously from our messages on LinkedIn that we spoke before, you said everybody's always saying AI is going to take away your job. Can you just unpack on how you think it will transpire over the next few years?
It has absolutely impacted the copywriting industry, and I feel so grateful that I got into copywriting before it was ever a thing, because I do think genuinely AI can produce copy that is better than someone who just started out as a copywriter. And so why would anyone hire them? It doesn't make sense, because it's free and it's easy and you can get it in a minute, not a day. So I think we're going to see long term the effects of that, because if you don't have those copywriters starting out and learning and making mistakes, then who's going to be the next midway copywriters? And like it is going to affect the industry long term. Or AI will just get better and better and it will take everybody's jobs in the end. But there was a lot of fear mongering around that originally, and it's still, I think this is what I said to you when you asked about it before, how has AI impacted your work? It's the first question anybody.
The next generation of copywriters is definitely going to affect them because there's no new copywriters coming on.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects the industry, because if there's no people starting out and making mistakes, then who are the next generation of middleweight copywriters? And it will go have a domino effect on and on. Or AI will just get better and better and become a middleweight copywriter. I can't see that at the moment, but it's extremely clever, so who's to say that it won't? But when I say I'm a writer, which I think is what I said to you before we discussed this, but it's the first question people ask. They're like, are you worried about AI? Is it going to steal your job? And I used to doubt myself and think, am I being cocky here? Because I was like, nah, it's not going to take my job. But there was a time when I was like, is it going to take my job? I don't know. But where it is right now, I can't predict the future. But AI can't do what I do. It can't do anything near what I can do. And I'm very grateful for that.
No, definitely. And I think, it's a lot at the moment. AI is very good at lots of different things, but if you're an expert in the field, then it's not as good as the experts. Like you said, they're better than people who are just starting out, but to get to that established sort of expertise state is not there yet anyway. Definitely, like you say, no one can predict the future, and it is getting smarter and smarter. I feel like as well, it will learn from expert copywriters or experts in any field. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the more you use it, the more it's going to learn. But yeah, who knows what sort of impact it's going to have on lots of different industries.
Well, it's trained on content that is available on the internet. That is content written by copywriters, but also, is it going to go in the other direction? Because so much of what's on the internet now is AI. So is AI going to be learning off AI, and it's actually just going to get worse and worse, not better and better? Surely they've thought of this and they're going to do something clever about it, because that would be counterintuitive for AI. I mean, great for me, but not for AI.
No, definitely. So Alice, what is working well right now, and where do you feel slight friction in the business?
What is working well? I think communication with, like, in the company and with clients has never been better without sacrificing work-life balance. So my clients are around the world, definitely in different time zones to me, but if I wanted to, I could always have their messages on my phone at my fingertips, night and day. Sometimes that is needed. I know, copywriting, not the end of the world, no one's going to die, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes it's important. So yeah, what's working really well is the fact that we can be so responsive as a company, no matter where they are and what they're doing, and if they need us, we can be there. But you can turn it off and it doesn't have to be intrusive and take over your life. So that is working really well. Frictions, that's trickier. I'm quite happy with it at the moment. It's quite boring to be so buoyant, but I am. Frictions would be, I suppose, actually tied into what we discussed earlier. There is, with new clients, not established clients, there has been, not recently, but there's a lot of running through AI checkers and being accused of AI and worrying about whether something's AI or not. And those AI checkers aren't accurate. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, because one of them was my own piece. Someone was like, oh, this is X% AI. And I was like, no, it's not. Because I wrote it from my head. So, but yeah, that, luckily, as I say, it's not with any of our bigger clients who are more sensible than that. But that is a friction that occasionally rears its head. And how can you prove it beyond saying, no, it's not? So, yeah, nothing you can do.
And no, that's the first time I've heard that. I heard about people doing these AI checkers to check how much AI, but obviously hearing that from you, an established writer that you wrote it and it come back, so that's definitely food for thought to know that they're not always accurate. I mean,
They're so inaccurate.
I did see someone else write something on LinkedIn saying that he used an M dash himself, like in his own writing. to message someone back or a client back, and they put, yeah, if we want to speak to AI, then we'll just speak to AI. And he was like, no, this is me. I know my grammar, and this is where an M dash should have been in the thing. So yeah, that's the only other time I've actually heard something like that. But yeah, no, it's definitely food for thought. And even though it's kind of like, one aspect you've spoke about AI being, where there's been times where you thought maybe it could, become, not take your job, but become more prevalent in the industry. And then there's another thing where it's AI again. Do you know what I mean? People using it, they were checking it, saying this is AI. So it's kind of like, as much as it's not, taking over your business or the industry, it's very prevalent, isn't it? On the outskirts of how people are using it to, not just ask, did you write that in AI, but also, to be able to stand out from it as well.
I did, yeah. My moment of most concern, and I did genuinely lose clients over it, when there was a time when everyone was like, we don't need well, not everyone, some people were like, we don't need copywriters because AI can do this. They all came back, but they did, and why not? It's tempting for business. There's nothing against them personally. They were like, why are we getting you to do this? We could get AI to do this. So they did, and it didn't work, but it makes sense. So yeah, there was a time when I was like, ooh, is it going to affect me in a negative way? But it didn't, so it's fine.
So Alice, my last couple of questions are, where do you want to be in terms of business in the next 12 to 18 months?
I would love the business to be able to run itself. Is pretty much running itself at the moment, but actually that's a lie. It's not, because it needs me. So it's yeah, that's the answer. I would love the business to be able to run itself without me being in it day to day. That's where 12 to 18 months is ambitious for that, but yeah, that's what I would love to happen in an ideal world.
What does needs to change operationally for that to
Well, I suppose at the moment I am the point of contact for everybody, and they have a relationship with me, and then I'm the point of contact within the business. So yeah, it's about control and letting go of control rather than it not being able to happen or it being difficult. It's, I think, a common theme for business owners. It is something that you've built yourself, and can you trust someone else? And the answer is obviously yes, but it's letting go.
Yeah, no, definitely. It becomes like your baby, doesn't it? When you yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We're always in the same boat.
Definitely. So Alice, my last question is, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would it be?
I don't know if anything needs fixing. That's cocky. What would I fix?
Or change?
So I'm pretty lucky. So I work entirely from home, surrounded by dogs. They're here right now. And in sometimes my jodhpurs, because I have a horse. Sometimes in my pajamas, and speak to really quite high-powered people around the world from the comfort of my home. And everybody that has worked for the business does the same. So I love that. But if I could wave a magic wand, I've thought of it. It would be that I could have the one aspect from an office that I do miss, which is being able to sit in a room together and go over ideas. It's just not worth it for my business to orchestrate that happening and get everyone there. But it is so valuable. There is an element of person to person that really does help your business, and I would love to be able to facilitate that without it costing everyone so much time and money to get there. Sometimes these things aren't always productive, but having the opportunity to sit in a room and chew things over would be great.
Is one of the things, not that there's a lot of things going into an actual workplace. I think it's better for them being at home, but I think that is one of the things when you get brains together in a room together, everyone's attention is there. Because even if you do it on Zoom, not everyone's attention is right there. It's not quite the same as being in an office with a whiteboard, for example, or something like that, and actually just, like you said, chewing the fat, brainstorming together, and the power of cohesiveness all together to make something really, really great, is sometimes lost when working at home.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree.
So Alice, thank you so much for coming on. I've loved the episode, learned so much. Where can my viewers and listeners reach out to you if they're wanting to work with On Top of the Word?
ontopoftheword.co.uk, very simple. I'm also on LinkedIn under Alice Cook with an E on the end. Cookie, yeah. I'd love everyone to get in touch. And there are contact details on the website. I think it's got my phone number, my email. I won't ramble through those now, but they're all there, ontopoftheword.co.
Right, well, there you have it, everybody. Reach out to Alice on LinkedIn or to her website. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Alice. And everybody who's watching and listening, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.